Hey guys, welcome to Cru. Whether you're joining us in person or online, we're so glad you're out here.
My name is Lydia. I'm a senior studying business administration and marketing with a minor in communications.
And I'm Sean. I'm a senior studying paper science and chemical engineering.
A little bit more about Cru is that we are a Christian organization on campus that's passionate about connecting people with Jesus and others.
Tonight's going to be a little different. We're going to start with a worship song instead of a student story. Just feel free to sit back and relax while we do that. And then we'll transition over to a talk from a Cru staff member, and we're going to do discussion groups like normal.
But first, as always, announcements. Brand new announcement. I'm super excited about it. Salvation Army bell ringing is happening November 13th from 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. There's time slots throughout that whole day at 3 different locations. We'd love to fill all those spots up and really show the community that we're here and we're ready to help raise money. It's a great way to connect with others too. I mean, obviously, different times this year. Why not make some new friends, make some connections, and spend some time with people that you maybe don't normally spend time with. So, signing up with either Rachel after Cru or online.
Awesome. I'm super excited for that. I'm going to see if I can make it to a time slot there.
For sure.
Another announcement for you guys is that we have prayer meetings, which will be every Thursday at 6:30 p.m., which is an hour and a half before Cru starts. It's going to be in the DUC. People will be meeting just outside of the Homegrown Cafe on the first level there.
Super fun. Next, we have Bible studies, which happen Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday nights. Online and in person, we have Athletes in Action, Impact, Destino, Epic, all kinds of fun things happening. I love leading my Bible study, as I'm sure you guys already know from me saying every week, but I just really do love seeing those girls every week and getting to grow more in my faith. Overall, an awesome time, but hey, where can I find more info about that?
You can always find more info about Bible studies and other events at our website, which is UWSPcru.org. You guys can do signups there. There's always information. And if you just haven't ever checked it out, go ahead and do that.
It's really cool.
There's a lot of information there. You can also follow our social media at UWSP Cru on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube to stay up to date with everything that we are doing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's all we got for announcements today. So, a little transitioning. As always, this time, no student speaker. Just sit back, relax, listen, enjoy the song. I love worship. I'm excited to have it back. See you guys in a bit.
In my mother's womb, form me with your hands, known and loved by you. Before I took a breath, when I doubted, Lord, remind me I'm wonderfully made. You're an artist and a potter, I'm the canvas and the clay.
Hey guys, Eric here. So glad you're joining us tonight for Cru. I'm just excited to continue to talk us through our series on Hebrews 12. One of the exciting things that I've found about just doing the talk series with Cru this way and going through one chapter of one book of the Bible really slowly is this sense that the Bible is full of richness. And there's just so much to unpack, right? It's easy to read. You could read Hebrews chapter 12 in probably less than 5 minutes, and you'd be done. And we're spending weeks diving in deep on our thoughts on the depths of the passage, and that's exciting to me. So I'm excited to continue on what we're going through, and. So I get the chance to read us through Hebrews 12, verses 7 through 11. Probably not the passages I would have picked as fun, but it's going to be a good time, and I'm excited to see what God has to say for us tonight. So here we go. Let's read on in. Hebrews 12, 7 through 11 says, "It is for discipline that you have to endure. God is treating you as sons. For what son is there whom his father does not discipline? If you are left without discipline, in which all have participated, then you are illegitimate children and not sons. Besides this, we have earthly fathers who disciplined us, and we respected them. Shall we not much more be subject to the Father of spirits and live? For they disciplined us for a short time, as it seemed best to them. But he disciplines us for our good, that we may share his holiness. For the moment, all discipline seems painful rather than pleasant, but later it yields the peaceful fruit of righteousness to those who have been trained by it." And so, really to me, this passage, one of the first things it brings to mind, just because it talks a lot about fathers and sons, right? So I'm a son. I have a father, and one of the things that I think about is when I was a kid, my parents used to take my brother and I to church every Sunday, and we went to this kind of like old style church with like the wooden benches. They called them pews, which I thought was a really weird word. But like these really long benches made out of wood, and they had this like really thin, like razor thin cushions on them to make you feel like maybe it was going to be a little comfortable. It was like carpeted walkways, but then like where you sat, it was wood, like underneath your feet. Kind of huge, big grand style ceilings and all that. My brother and I, especially at a young age, we weren't exactly, tuned in to what was going on at church. We weren't exactly like following along or, nodding along to the message like, "Oh, yeah, good point, Pastor." We were just there and needed something to be distracted by that was quiet. And so my parents would allow us to take like a quart-sized Ziploc bag each and like put things in it that were quiet toys. And then while we were there, we were like allowed to play with those things. Usually, it was like coloring. I would bring little like Matchbox or Hot Wheels cars, because I was like really into cars as a kid, and so I would bring those, and it would kind of start out. I would just kind of like, I'd be sitting there and I'd be like zooming the car around like the top of the next seat in front of me, and like kind of over the little, they had the little tray, like the little thing where the Bible sat, and I would like run them over that, and then eventually I'd be like, I'd drive it along like my dad's arm, and he'd be like, "Hey, like, no, don't do that." And I was like, okay. And then I'd like, you turn around and you use the seat as kind of like your play place, and so I'd be like zooming him around there. And then my brother's just content. He's coloring, doing his thing. He's a little younger than I am. And I remember this one Sunday, it just like sticks in my mind. I had like conjured up this idea of like, what if like, I wonder how far the cars go when you run them along the floor, because it's like wood floor, and it's like you just have like, it felt like miles of runway in front of you. And so we tested it. I got my brother to do this with me. We had tested it. And then we kind of were running along our row a little bit, just back and forth, and it was a little loud. And so my dad was like, "Hey, like boys, like stop that," in a whisper. We're like, "Okay, we're sorry." And then it was I waited a little bit, and then my brother moved on. I went right back to it, and I thought maybe I could do it. I could do the same thing, but I could do it quietly, right? So I ran the car to like more what I thought was quieter, but still loud. And then, my dad asked me to stop again. Whoa, the camera went weird. He asked me to stop again, and so I stopped, went right back to it. And then I had the idea of like I'm just gonna race him. I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna send it. And I didn't know that term then, but and I took 2 cars and I just shoved them as fast as I could. Like down the rows, like at other people's feet, basically. And the only thing I can really describe what happened next is my dad just kind of he picked me up, and we left the church service area, and some discipline entered into my life in that moment. And I had definitely crossed over into the danger zone, right? And I can tell you this, I never did that again. I never raced cars down the church rows on the wood floors. That was something I definitely never did again. And I think that it's funny to me now, because at the time it was definitely a temporarily but very painful moment in my life where I kind of wish I had just gotten away with it, or I wished, Dad, I wish you'd just been cool about this. Let me race my cars. I'm bored. But like that temporary inconvenience and temporary pain really, in some ways, paid dividends in my behavior down the road. I learned that the church was a place of respect, and I wasn't the only person in the room trying to pass the time. Other people were genuinely trying to listen to what was going on, and I was interrupting them. And that was kind of an adult turning point moment for me at a young age, and just kind of realized that I'm not the only person in the world. But really, that story helps me now, as I'm a dad now, to a son who is almost 2, loves cars as well, and doesn't really have a sense for loudness or interruption or chaos and how it might play effect in people around him. And so I foresee myself being in this exact same scenario someday. And being a father now, knowing the things that it must have gone through my dad's mind, right? Like, he gave me plenty of chances to turn back, from what I was doing. But I didn't heed his words. I kept pushing the envelope until I crossed to where I couldn't return from, and discipline entered in, and lessons were learned. But I know as a parent, there's a sorrow in having to enter into that portion of the world, of disciplining your child. There's a sorrow because you wish that you didn't have to do that. You wish they had learned the lesson, already figured it out, not pushed the boundary, right? But also you have to be responsible, and God displays in this passage that discipline is a part of His plan for us, right? I think, like, when I think about discipline in a biblical sense, right, apart from my own experiences as a son or as a dad, and I think of, I always think of how Jesus used this image of shepherds and sheep, right? And like we always talk about the one sheep that wanders off, like Jesus leaves the 99, right, to find the one who wanders away. And I always think that's a beautiful picture. And I've done a lot of reading on, not a lot, I've done some reading on, like, what does a shepherd do after he goes and gets that one? what's to stop that sheep from doing that again? What if another sheep sees what that sheep did and was like, oh dang, he just goes and gets you? Like I'm gonna wander off too now. Is there discipline that occurs? And I've read one thing where like it said that like shepherds would like break the legs of the sheep so they couldn't like physically break them so they couldn't run away again, like a pain lesson. It seems a little extreme. I read another article that said that like there's no way shepherds would have done that because like the healing process would have taken too long. How would you know if you set the bones right to heal so the sheep could like walk again? It would take too long for the healing process, et cetera, et cetera. And so I was like, okay, that makes some sense. And then I read this other thing that was like shepherds still do this practice, not like, I don't know about like right now today, but like in more recent history, they would put on a leg brake, but like brake like a brake on your car brake. They would like tie something heavy to the sheep's leg so that if it wandered, it couldn't wander far because it would be hindered, right? And so it would have to stay near to the shepherd, partially because it couldn't go too far from him, but also then the shepherd could keep his eye on him, the wandering sheep, and help bring it back to himself. And I don't know, there's something about that image that I think I really connect with. There's a discipline that occurs, of course, a hindrance in the sheep's life that the shepherd puts on, but it's not necessarily a violent one. It's not necessarily an almost irreversible one. Maybe, but it's one that encourages it primarily to stick close to the shepherd and to be reminded that the shepherd is worth sticking close to, that wandering isn't going to get you anywhere. And I think to me, that's one of the biggest things that discipline brings, not only in a earthly father-son, parent-child dynamic, but in our relationship with God, right? The passage says that God is treating us as sons, and that being like genderly universal, like God's treating us as sons or daughters, right? And so, and the passage ends with that in the moment, discipline seems painful rather than pleasant, but later it yields the peaceful fruit of righteousness to those who have been trained by it. And the way that this section ends reminds me of spiritual discipline moments in my own life as I've walked with God over the years. And I think about, am I going to spend the time to read the Bible on a daily basis? That's a spiritual discipline. It's a discipline that I have to put into my life. And what is it worth? Why do it? I think about self-discipline just in general in my life and how sometimes easy those things are. Not easy in that like, oh, it's a piece of cake, but like it's easy to put them into practice. Like study habits. Like in college, like to succeed for the most part, study habits need to be put in place. You need to discipline yourself to not go and play video games. You need to study. You need to not go hang out with friends. You need to study. There's moments in your life where you know that discipline must come into play. And those things have to happen. If you've ever been an athlete, you know that discipline is a part of getting better, whether that's in practice or training on a certain skill, or just like trying to improve your health so that you can be stronger, be more cardiovascular, stronger in strength, and be able to do more, run more, be faster. And so if you've done, I've played a lot of musical instruments in my life, and I know to get better at those musical instruments, I have to put in the work. It takes an hour every day of running through stuff, and then years down the line, I can play this piece, or I can do this thing. and it doesn't, for the most part, just kind of happen overnight. It takes discipline, it takes work. I think those are things that we kind of instinctively know, but when it comes to our spiritual discipline, I know in my life, I can't necessarily speak for everyone out there, but in my own life, those things are easier. Spiritual discipline, more complicated. And part of it, I think, for me is because I don't see the immediate results, right? If I want to lose 10 pounds, I know that I have to, stop eating cookies and candy after meals and probably eat less Pizza Hut pizza and more like chicken breasts and salads. And so if I start doing those things, I know that I'll lose weight. There's like a formula to it, and I know that I'll see those results, maybe not in a week, but in less than a year, theoretically, I should see some of those results, right? And so there's an immediacy to the effects of that discipline. Sometimes in the spiritual discipline, at least in my own life, sometimes the results don't happen for years and years and years, or I might never see the results of that discipline until eternity. And maybe those results are monumental, or maybe they're very minute. But I think that makes it harder for me to do them. Doesn't make them less important, though. In fact, I would say our spiritual disciplines are potentially more important because, like, if you've ever seen the example of like what our existences are like as God has created us, like Francis Chan, who was a pastor in like the San Francisco Bay Area for a while, and it was kind of just like a roaming speaker, evangelist type dude. He used this example of like he had like a big rope that he like dragged all the way around his whole church, right, into the aisles and everywhere, and then back up on stage he held like the end of it, and he had this like little piece of the end that was colored in a different color, and he said like, this little piece right here is our life on earth, the rest of it is the rest of our existence in eternity. And so the spiritual disciplines are going to pay dividends for the rest of that, right? And most of the other disciplines we have in our life are going to affect that little portion. Not that little portion is insignificant, not that getting healthy is insignificant, or doing well in school, or being good at a particular sport or skill. It's very important. I think it's good to discipline ourselves for sure, and get better at things. But spiritual disciplines are either just as important, if not more. And I think, but it's hard for us to realize that. And so in my own life, I've tried to just remind myself that it's important, remind myself of the value that it brings to my life. And this passage, man, like if I could just speak this passage into my life on a more regular basis, I think those moments when I don't want to, I don't, when I wake up in the morning, I don't want to spend 5-10 minutes in prayer with the Lord before I get out of bed, or I don't want to like crack the Bible open. I'd rather start just scrolling through YouTube or Instagram. I don't want to end my day like thinking about what God's done throughout my day. I'd rather just like play Fall Guys and veg out. These are the things that are going through my mind. But like if I would remember that all discipline for the moment seems painful rather than pleasant, very true, but later it yields peaceful fruit of righteousness to those who have been trained by it, might I train myself in spiritual disciplines so that peaceful fruit of righteousness might enter into my life. And so that to me is like my big takeaway from this passage, that discipline is worth it. And one of the best ways we can live out discipline in our lives is through spiritual disciplines, the everyday regular stuff. Reading your Bible, praying, spending time in community, thinking on God's word, not just reading it, but thinking on it, and then living it out. Like, what does it mean to live out what you read? And a lot of the times for me, I'm like, I have no idea, and so I need to like talk to people. And that's where the community piece comes in. That's where prayer comes in. But if we're not actively grabbing from those things, those spiritual disciplines, we're not going to get a complete picture, right? And so, yeah, I think those are some things I just wanted to share with us tonight, and I hope that you guys, would think on how discipline is going to play dividends in your life, whether that's spiritual or otherwise. And I look forward to seeing how God continues to unfold the book of Hebrews, especially chapter 12, throughout the rest of the semester, because I feel like each week so far, it's just been like a deep dive in a really great way. So I look forward to seeing you guys in weeks to come, and we'll head on to the MCs.
Hey guys, welcome back. I hope you guys enjoyed Cru tonight. I always love being here with you guys on Thursdays, but it's time for some transitioning. For our friends online, please press your Zoom link and head on over. John will meet you there and give you your door prize cards. Our friends in person, super exciting. Your discussion leaders are going to be passing out your door prize cards, as always. So have fun, enjoy the discussion questions. It was nice to see everybody here. See you next week.